Okay. And Ulises, hello. Good to see you. So we're just going to get started in a minute as people start coming in. And the meeting is being recorded for note-taking purposes. I love having a secretary that's accurate like this. Although the spelling of my name is usually different. Hello, Sean.
Hello. Am I muted? I'm not sure.
No, you're not muted.
Okay.
We will at the beginning just ask in the protocols that everybody but the presenters are muted.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And so we're just getting some more people that are coming in right now, and we'll get started in just a minute or two. Okay, and there we go. And we have some guests. They almost sound like, what was it, the kids program where they say, and I see David, and I see David, and I see Allison, and I see Gina.
Romper room.
And
Romper
romper room.
room.
That's the and I see Oliver, he's Stanley, and I welcome everybody here. So I'm not going to carry on, but so I think we're getting it started because we're just at 7:03, and I'm going to go back to sharing the screen, and so we welcome everybody to the 5th East Waterfront Community Association Annual General Meeting. And members will continue to join us as we go in. But what I'm going to do is to share my screen and just go through some of the parts of the meeting that we need. So the agenda that we have for this evening is up on the screen now. And my name is Mike Bethke, and I'll be the chair of tonight's meeting. And I'm going to go through the meeting etiquette at first, and then we'll verify the quorum for everybody that is, and I just lost the way I was doing my view, and go back to the gallery and view and speaker. There we go. So we have the introduction of the meeting etiquette, and we'll have a quick note that please turn off your microphone and camera during the presentations this evening so that we can focus the attention on the speakers. We'll have a Q&A section after each speaker. So to ask a question, please put your question into the chat or raise your hand and we'll get to you. We also have some prearranged questions that will be dealt with during the presentations. We've forwarded them to the speakers. We then go on to the AGM presentation, and we're going to verify quorum later on and proceed with the AGM. And I'll now ask our Vice President, Carlos Garcia, to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, as we begin this meeting, I would like to acknowledge that the land upon the EWCA is part of the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Carlos. And next is our first speaker, who we are very pleased to welcome back. I'd like to introduce Chris Glover, who is the MPP for the Spadina-Fort York riding. And Chris was first elected at the 42nd Provincial Parliament on June the 11th in 2018, and he was re-elected to the 43rd and now the 44th Ontario Provincial Parliament in the most recent election. Chris was a member of the Standing Committee on Government Agencies and critic for democratic reform technology, and the new critic appointments will be coming out fairly soon. And we wish Chris the best in his future roles with the provincial government. Besides his work at the legislature, Chris has actually been involved in community service, including delivering meals to the homeless, organizing food drives with EWCA and other groups, and delivering toys to children in our riding. Most recently, he assisted EWCA in a food drive for the food bank. And on behalf of EWCA, we thank Chris for his assistance in providing the donation bins and delivering the over 200 pounds of food generously donated by the residents of EWCA. And so I'm now going to hand it over to Chris. And if you unmute your microphone and your camera, and then we can get you going. Are you there, Chris? Oh, there he is.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. There was one more microphone setting I needed to adjust. Okay. Anyways, nice to see you. Thank you for that kind introduction, Michael. It's great to see you. Great to be back working with you guys. Thank you so much. It's an honor, to be serving this community, be able to continue serving this community as the MPP. There is a lot to be done, especially with this particular period in history, which is, unfolding in strange ways, in ways that I don't think any of us could have anticipated even a few months ago. I got your questions, and you were asking about, the impact of the Ford majority on the waterfront development plans. You asked about anything that's in development so far, and also about small business. So I've got some remarks prepared. I will try to answer those to the degree that I can, but I will acknowledge that at this point, the legislature is not even back yet. It won't be resuming until April 15th. That's when we're expecting them to introduce their spring budget. That will certainly talk about their priorities and give us a better sense of what they are planning. But I will talk a little bit about the waterfront development. We've got this tariff threat, and I think many of us are thinking about this all the time. We're listening, we're reading, we're trying to understand, read the tea leaves a little bit with this, absolutely crazy president down in the United States, and, how to best protect Canada, our people, our industries. And so I think, the one thing that I haven't been hearing about, I think the tariff threat actually presents an opportunity for us in Ontario. I think it's an opportunity to change our economic ideology. For the last 40 years, we've been pursuing an economic ideology. It's known as neoliberalism or corporatism, where you sell off public assets, you privatize public services, you give all that over to the private for-profit sector. And what has happened in a large degree is American corporations have been gobbling up our assets, our services, and it hasn't worked out for us. The gap between rich and poor has grown immensely. There's 50% more wealth in the province than there was in the country than there was 40 years ago. The GDP per capita has gone up by 50%, but the median income is flatlined, which means that most people are making less income than their parents were 40 years ago. And so there's an opportunity to change that ideology, because as we deal with this tariff threat, and there was just another announcement of a 25% additional tariff on all imported cars to the United States. This, is very difficult for us. In the past, we had an auto pact with the United States that was in place between 1965 and early 2000s. It was, disintegrated. But the deal with the auto pact was whatever cars are sold in Canada, a proportional number of cars would be made in Canada. And that was the auto pact. And then that was changed with the free trade agreement. And a lot of automakers located in Ontario, because of our, some of our competitive advantages, our public healthcare system, so our public health insurance is lower, our wages are a little bit more competitive, particularly when the dollar is low. And, a lot of automakers located in Ontario. And now with, this tariff threat, they're looking, it's going to be a big change. And we faced this before. It's over 100 years ago. And we came back with a national policy in the late 1800s. And I think we need to be looking at this, and we're already talking about, almost all the political parties are talking about opening up the trade or reducing the trade barriers between the provinces, looking for new markets for our goods, slowing down or reducing the integration with the American economy and integrating more, with other global partners, looking at Europe as partners, as Asia and South America. And I think Trump actually made a mistake in attacking everybody at once, because all of these countries and nations that had been depending upon the states for some sort of stability it's no longer a trustworthy trade partner. You can sign an agreement with the United States, and you never know whether it's going to be respected or not. And so everybody's looking for alternative trade arrangements. And so there's an opportunity for Canada to be going out and doing that. And at the same time, locally, we've got to increase our own markets. We've got to support Canadian businesses. And you saw Olivia Chow announcing earlier this week, or last week, I guess it was, that the city's going to be focusing on procuring Canadian-made goods. I think that's a good start. We need to echo that at the provincial level. And this means, that we need to support our public assets and services. We need to, cancel the contract with Ontario Place. In the wake of these tariffs, it was already a terrible deal, but it's completely unconscionable to be giving a $2.2 billion taxpayer subsidy and a 95-year lease on public parkland to American and Austrian corporations. We need that money to be going to Ontario corporations to showcase Ontario ingenuity and innovation. And that's the argument we're going to be making at at Queen's Park when it reopens, and even before that. We're already starting to make some noise about supporting Ontario businesses, our workers, our community members, and supporting, using Ontario Place as an opportunity. And the other piece of this, we need to support our essential public services, our healthcare, our education, our school system, our schools, our colleges and universities. These need to be protected. Right now, the ideology has been we're going to, cut the funding to these. We're going to be opening them up to private for-profit corporations, many of them American corporations that are moving particularly into our healthcare system. And we need to stop that trend. We need to protect our hospitals, our colleges, our universities, our schools as Canadian institutions. Let's see, just a couple of you asked about the waterfront. The only thing I can really comment on that is what we will be fighting for, and that is the cancellation of the deal at Ontario Place with Therma and with Live Nation, and a redevelopment, that focuses on Ontario businesses and provides an opportunity to showcase Ontario innovation, which was the initial goal of Ontario Place. For example, the IMAX Theatre, it was the world's first IMAX theatre. IMAX was an Ontario developed technology, and there's other new Ontarian technologies that would be able to be showcased there. A couple of other news items. Let's see, the supervised injection sites are closing shortly. They have not worked the way that they were intended to work because we need treatment, we need rehab, we need supports around them. They were never intended to be the stopgap. They were never intended to be the end. They were intended to be a pathway to support housing, to the things that people need. So we're going to be pushing for, in the legislature, I will be pushing for, supports to deal with the opioid epidemic and also with the homelessness crisis. The two are intertwined, which is not to say that, the majority or even, a large proportion of the people who are homeless have addictions, but there are a number of people who are homeless and do have addictions, and they need both housing and they need, as does anybody who's homeless, and they need supports. A couple of final things, I'll just close on this. The Red Path Sugar is celebrating the 164th annual Port of Toronto Top Hat ceremony, and this celebrates the first ocean-going vessel of the 2025 shipping season. It was supposed to happen today, but I guess, it was not in my calendar, so I'm assuming that it's been postponed. The first ship has not arrived just yet, but we are expecting that celebration to be happening soon. And also this Saturday, my office will be celebrating the Community Service Awards, and we'll be recognizing people who have made a substantial contribution to our community. So I'll leave it at that, and then I'll just open it up to questions.
Thank you, Chris. And if, as we said at the beginning, if you have any questions, you can please raise your hand by going up to the top of the screen and clicking on the raise hand button, or you can put a question in the chat.
Have I answered everybody's questions?
That was a very good presentation, including the extra about the top hat ceremony. So
I should have left them wanting more.
Here we go.
Oh, you have one.
Oh,
okay.
Allison is coming in. Allison, just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, I'm very sorry. This is not a question, but I would like to say congratulations, Chris. I was very pleased to see you got reelected.
Thank you so much, Allison. It's incredible. It's an honor and, a real thrill to be back here serving the community.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, to Michael, Michael and I, we really did the food drive for the food programs. Like Michael's got an SUV and I've got a minivan, and between the two of us, that's how we managed to carry all that food around. So can I just ask everybody to give Michael a round of applause for all he does for our community, including the food drive?
Yay!
Yay, Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, now my face is as red as my shirt, so I'm going to say thank you very much, Chris, for that.
Oh, we got another question from Sean.
And Sean.
Sean.
Hi,
Sean,
Chris. Yeah. My question is tangentially, I guess, related to small businesses. So Toronto, a few months ago, it was in city council to allow corner stores in communities. And one of the concerns was cities aren't allowed to put restrictions on cannabis stores. And is that something, that you...
Yes, the NDP, we brought forward a bill in the last legislature. It was brought forward by Mart Stiles, our leader, to give municipalities the control to determine where cannabis stores would be located. And, I know that is one of the challenges with the, those variety stores in communities. I think most people, support variety stores in residential communities and even, coffee shops. But they're afraid of cannabis shops opening up, or also them getting licensed under the AGCO, because it's one thing to have a variety store; it's another thing to have a bar in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
And I have David Chan. Welcome back, David.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, David?
Not too bad. Recovering well right now. So far, so good. I have two questions. Now we know that Trump's intention is to relocate all the auto industries from Canada back to the US. What are the plans that you think the provincial government would do, the Ontario government would do to prepare for that? Can they retool those factories to do other things? That's one question. The other question is, why should Canada then follow US in implementing 100% tariffs on China's EVs? Because they are very much more affordable for us. And since Canada is still going ahead with climate change and prepare for that, I think we should show US that we are not in line with them. So we would encourage, if we're going to boost our auto industry, then we might as well open up to get cheaper cars for our citizens. For Canadians, right? If you look at the same example as in Australia, where they also lost their car industry, they import all kinds of vehicles from all over the world, including China. So those are the two questions I have.
Okay. I think it's too early to determine what the response should be to these tariffs because they're just newly introduced. And so I wouldn't want to speculate on that. But one of the goals is the auto industry is our second biggest export from Canada. So we want to maintain the tens of thousands of jobs that are, dependent upon the auto industry. And I think that's going to be the government's first priority. Like, how do we maintain an auto industry in Canada, even if it is for the domestic market, and maybe that's what the retooling will be. As far as imports from China go, I think that's something that, has to be looked at and on balance with protecting Canadian jobs, the Canadian auto industry, and then, and also providing people with low cost cars.
Yeah, but the Canadian market wouldn't be able to sustain such a,
So until 1995, with the trade agreements that we had, the Auto Pact and with the original free trade agreement, the proportion, cars were made on both sides of the border. And I'm from Oshawa, so I remember, we would be short on parts, and they would be flying in a plane with auto parts from the United States, from Detroit or wherever, to make sure, because we had just-in-time delivery for auto parts. The car parts were shifting back and forth between the two countries, and then final assembly would be happening. In Canada, it happened in Oshawa, at St. Catharines, and Saint-Thérèse, and at least with General Motors, Saint-Thérèse in Quebec. And so there was just a lot of back and forth with this. But the idea was that proportionally, whatever number of cars we made in Canada or we bought in Canada, we made that proportion. I mean, I think we've gone a little bit the other way because of our low-cost dollar, our public healthcare system. You know, there's just been some competitive advantages that have made more auto companies interested in opening in Canada. We may have to rebalance this, you know, but I think we do have a large, you know, we've got 37 million people, and, you know, the second largest country in the world, we drive a lot, you know, so we do need domestic, you know, certainly if the States is not going to be buying cars made in Canada, there's no way we should be buying cars made in the United States.
Yeah, but the problem here is the cars that are manufactured here, they're actually designed and sort of built by GMs and Stellantis as well as Ford. So they are not actually Canadian design cars. So if they are trying to pull everything back, including the manufacturing of all their parts for the cars, then we will end up with nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were also Honda and Toyota factories in Ontario. And maybe, you know, and one of the things, like I'm from Oshawa, I come from 5 generations of General Motors workers. It provided very good jobs for people for over 100 years. But it is time that we had an automaker in Canada, you know, a Canadian automaker. And maybe these tariffs and the threat of them provides an opportunity for us to actually start building an Ontario-based car. And maybe that's some of the innovation that we should be showcasing at Ontario Place.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, David. I'm going to move on to Malene, who also has a question.
Hi, hi, Chris. How are you?
Good.
I have a quick question. I'm really interested in hearing about what you're going to be prioritizing for 2025 as our MP, and also if you can give us an idea of what you are planning for the next coming term.
Okay, so I can tell you my immediate priorities are protecting our small businesses. I've got a meeting with the local small business community. If anybody here runs a small business or owns a small business in the riding, reach out to my office. You can join my small business meeting. We're meeting with John Kiru, who's the director of the TABIA, the Toronto Association of BIAs. We're meeting him next week. With him next week, we're going to be talking about protecting our small businesses from the tariff threat. The other priorities, protecting our public healthcare system. It needs to be rebuilt, and it should not be, you know, we've got to protect it from privatization. Ontario Place, as I mentioned, and the offshoot of Ontario Place is also, you know, this coyotes. And I don't think they've reached as far as East Waterfront, but they have, you know, they are causing havoc in our community in Fort York, Liberty Village, City Place.
You mean the animal coyotes, or when I hear coyotes, I'm thinking of trafficking. Sorry. So
no, the real coyotes, the actual the animals. The coyotes, they're attacking dogs, and there's been 90 attacks that are documented now. 4 dogs have been killed. 1 jogger was attacked. You know, we need this, and this seems. It coincides, this aggressive behavior from the coyotes coincided with the destruction of the forest at Ontario Place and also along the railroad tracks for the Ontario line. And both of those were done without an environmental assessment. So there was no plan made for the wildlife that was going to be displaced. And so the coyotes have moved into the city and they're causing havoc. And this is something that where the province has created a problem and the city is trying to deal with it. And I know Tom Davidson is on the call, you know, from Councillor or Deputy Mayor Malik's office. They've been working at this issue. It's a very difficult issue to tackle, but it is just one more example of issues that are created by provincial levels of government, and then they leave the city to deal with it, just like the homeless encampments. You know, the homelessness is created by provincial policy.
Thank you, Malene. And I'm going to have just one more question with Kumsa Baker. So Kumsa, unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Congratulations, Chris, on your re-election. It's really great to see you as a community advocate being able to represent this community. My question quickly is about the Waterfront East LRT, because I know that's something that we've been really advocating for, is to really make sure that as this community continues to grow, that we have the transit and accessibility to support this growing community. It helps businesses, it helps students, get around. And so I wonder, is that something that you're going to be prioritizing in this upcoming term in terms of making sure that we get the funding? I know there's a lot of work happening on the design, but we still don't have the commitment around the funding. And is that something that you're going to be helping to advocate for?
Absolutely. I'll be, pushing for that. I know Tom Davidson is here. He could probably give you an update on the planning aspect of this, but we need the province to step up and provide the funding. And the Waterfront BIA, they did a study maybe a year and a half ago that showed that we would actually save, I think it was $25 million if we built the LRT now rather than waiting 10 or 15 years, and also it just makes, the East Waterfront's almost built out, but we need that LRT in place immediately. It should have been built 5 years ago. It needs to be built as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Kumsa, for that question. And I know, Chris, you've got to get on the way. You've got another meeting to go to, but I want to just thank you very much for your time and being here. And I took a look back, and I think you've been to almost every AGM meeting that we've had. So I didn't want to break the cycle. So,
well, I'm glad the election was over in time for me to make this one. So thank you so much.
So are we. And thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for participating in this. The residents associations, these are so crucial. This is grassroots democracy that you're practicing here. So thank you for your involvement.
Thank you, Chris. All right. And we're going to go on now to our presentation by Waterfront Toronto with the Q&A. And I'm going to ask Carlos Garcia, our VP, to introduce the team.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speakers from Waterfront Toronto. Please welcome to Carol and Ulises. Carol is a Director of Engagement and Communications, and Ulises is a Program Manager, focuses on public spaces. They've both been directly involved in Waterfront development and community engagement, and we're very glad to have them join us this evening. And Carol and Ulises, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Carlos. Hi, everyone. I am Carol Webb, and I'm just going to share my screen here, get myself ready. Okay. Are you seeing my screen okay there, Michael?
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks again for inviting us here tonight to chat with your group. I know that my colleague Kasia was here recently and talked about Quayside. But for anyone who was not at that meeting or who may be less familiar, I'm going to start with a short introduction. So Quayside is a 12-acre area at the foot of Parliament Street in Queens Quay East. You can see it here outlined in red. It comprises about 8 acres of developable land across 5 development blocks, as well as parkland, open space, and future roads. The vision is for this area to become a really vibrant hub, vibrant community, linking nearby neighborhoods such as yours and the Distillery District, and the downtown with the water's edge and future homes, green space, and destinations on Oakwoman-Minising, which was formerly known as Villiers Island, and you can see that down here in the lower right. Quayside is like the geographic heart of this cluster of neighborhoods, and it will really help to create vital connections for everyone. So the project consists of actually 3 connected projects. There's the mixed-use development, so the residential buildings, the privately owned public spaces, retail, and other amenities, which are being developed by our partners, Quayside Impact. And then there's the infrastructure and public realm, which is being designed and delivered by Waterfront Toronto. So that's the local streets, things like sewers, the extension of Queens Quay East and the realignment of Parliament Street, as well as extending a new section of the Water's Edge Promenade. So zoning for phase 1 of Quayside was adopted by Toronto City Council last July. As everyone is very aware, it's a very difficult development market right now. So at a time when the need for homes is greater than ever, new housing starts have actually stalled. So we've been collaborating with our government partners and with Quayside Impact to see how we might be able to accelerate the delivery of new market and affordable rental homes at Quayside. In November, the City of Toronto launched a new incentive program designed to help unlock new purpose-built rental and affordable rental homes. Quayside Impact responded to the call for applications, and in December, our project was selected as one of the citywide projects for the incentive program. So what this does is it facilitates the introduction of more than 1,250 purpose-built rental homes at Quayside, which will replace some of the homes originally planned as market condominiums. And then just last week, the federal government and the city announced a CMHC financing commitment that will support the delivery of purpose-built rental at 7 projects across the city, one of which is Quayside. So good news. We're also working hard to accelerate the delivery of about 550 affordable rental homes, aiming for about 100 more homes in the first phase of development than originally planned. So there's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes, and we're hoping that later this spring or early this summer, we'll have some more news to share on that front. In terms of the infrastructure and public realm, we're at the end of our design stage, and we're now gearing up for construction. And a lot of this infrastructure actually helps to enable the development that will follow. So the concept for the public realm was developed in collaboration with landscape designers Westate and DTH, in coordination with our engineers, WSP, and Indigenous subject matter and engagement experts at Monokemik Collective. The design leads with the notion of ecology, highlighting the transition from a highly urbanized city to the more naturalized landscape that will be found on Oakwim and Minising. So Quayside's local streets, like Small Street, are meant to feel similar to other neighborhood streets in East Bayfront. They'll include shade trees and also have some innovative features like open planters and lush understory plantings, and rocks that are placed both for interest in seating as well as to protect the plantings. An important part of this work is to set the stage for future transit, which we know everybody is very keen on, and the connection to Oakwim and Minising. So on Queens Quay East, from Bonnie Castle to Small Street, we'll be leaving the lanes as is for the moment and adding landscaping to the north side. From Small Street to Street A, which is a future street that aligns roughly with where the Victory Soy Mills silos are, these lanes will be reduced to 2, and space will be left for the future LRT. This area will become naturalized, as will the top of Parliament Slip. The Martin Goodman Trail and the sidewalk will continue in a similar fashion to what you see here today. And then Parliament Street will be realigned to a T intersection with Queens Quay East. So it'll switch from that odd angle to with a gentle curve, but more of a natural T intersection. In terms of cycling, initially Parliament Street will include a bidirectional bike lane on the east side that connects with the Martin Goodman Trail. And then later, this bidirectional lane will move to the west side to align with the future Parliament Street bike lanes being delivered by the city north of the train tracks. The Water's Edge Promenade will continue the double alley of trees that you may be familiar with from the current sections of the promenade, with some slight changes. On this new section, you'll find open planters and again, more understory plantings, once more evoking a more naturalized landscape. In terms of the construction, all of this work will be completed in phases. Phase 1, shown here in blue, includes all the enabling works for the new development, including the streets, the sanitary connections, and the extension of Queens Quay East and the realignment of Parliament Street. Phase 2, shown here in pink, includes the landscaping on the east side of Bonnie Castle and the south side of Lakeshore, the publicly owned private space that flanks Parliament Street, as well as future Street A, and Future Street D and Silo Park. Ulises will go into this in more detail in his part of the presentation, but the first phase of construction is expected to begin later this spring or early this summer and will last for about 2 years. We know that there's a lot happening in this part of the city. We've worked with our construction manager on a traffic management plan and have also been working closely with the city as well as with the TTC to coordinate with respect to the dedicated interim bus lanes. This plan was shared with our stakeholder advisory committee for feedback back in February. We got some great input from EWCA through Michael. And this plan is now being shared with the city for review and approval over the next few weeks. In terms of communication, our plan is to use a variety of tactics, including both online and digital communications, to support community members in their day-to-day lives, getting to work, doing errands, getting kids to daycare. Our goal is to ensure awareness of the construction and potential impacts, and as best we can to mitigate any potential issues. We also want to tell the story of Quayside to create an understanding of the bright outcome that we're working towards. So here you can see a couple of our strategies. We're in the pre-construction phase right now, where we're, as I said, coordinating with the city, our development partners, as well as the councillor's office, the TTC, and others. We're also out talking with resident associations to share more information to ensure that everyone in the neighborhood is aware and is able to ask questions. Another thing that we'll be doing is forming a construction liaison committee. And this is sort of a formalized structure, providing an opportunity for residents, businesses, landowners, and others in the area that will be impacted by construction to talk through what's happening and discuss any issues. Once construction begins, we'll have a dedicated hub on our website, which will have all the information people might need. There'll be hoarding and construction signage. And we're also working on an animation of what's happening and what people can expect. And then there'll be construction notices, our usual newsletter communications, and we'll be putting information out on our social channels. So there's lots of ways that people will be able to get information from us. And as always, if you have questions, you can go through your resident association or you can email us at the info email box. And again, our goal is we want to make sure people have as much information as they need to support them in their daily lives. And with that, I will turn it over to Ulises.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Hi all. As Carol noted, I will be talking a little bit more about the construction details, timelines, and more specifically about the future road closures that will be impacting the area, which I know most of you are concerned about. So in terms of the phasing that Carol noted, we will be starting with what we call phase 1, which is enabling works, which include sanitary and water main installation, dock installation for future services, road construction, and the realignment of Parliament Street, which is the main scope. We are planning to start late in the spring. The intention is to start with Small Street and another part of Queensquay East between Bonnie Castle and Small Street. You will see that in the detail because that will be the first closure that we will be implementing. In terms of progress, as you see there, we have tagged the Queensquay East Lakefield. That is part of the project that is already complete, and you will see a couple of slides next. Carol, you can proceed. Okay, this is the Lakefield, which will be used for the Queensquay extension. On the left side, you see how was the original lake condition, and on the right side, you will see the latest condition. You can see the trace of the triangle mark on the soil, which is basically the field that we installed, plus the dogwall to support the structure. And Queensquay East basically will be built on top of that. That project was complete 2 weeks ago, and we are just doing soil settlement monitoring before starting with the construction of Queens Keys later on the year. Next slide. Okay, going to the traffic management. Before getting into the sketches and the road closures, we want to highlight that we consider 4 main items developed in this traffic management plan, which, as Carol noted before, it was developed by our construction manager with input from the city and from the public as well. The main items that we took into consideration is that we are aware of all the projects around that area. Because we were trying to mitigate the impacts of our closures and the other closures that will be happening due to the other projects, specifically the gardener rehabilitation, the condominium development that is currently happening in the area, the Portland flood protection that is carried by Waterfront Toronto as well, and the Ontario Line works that is carried by Metrolinx. So also there has been further discussion with the City of Toronto and TTC regarding potential dedicated bus lanes and how we're going to be serving that area during the road closures. In terms of strategic staging, our construction schedule has been developed understanding the restrictions of the area. It's already a very convoluted area. So our strategy in terms of construction, we are planning to accelerate the work on Queens Quay East because that will be the closure that will be creating the major impacts ahead of Parliament Street before getting into the Parliament Street closure. So we won't be closing Queens Quay East, Small Street, and Parliament Street at the same time because that will be a nightmare. So we will be accelerating works on Queens Quay East. Once we're done, then we will proceed with the closure of Parliament Street. And you will see that in detail after. In terms of facilitating the movement of traffic, our commitment is to keep at least 1 lane in each direction all the time on Queens Quay and Parliament Street. And when possible, and you will see the detail, it will be 2 lanes even in the westbound direction. And in terms of intersection closures, we only have anticipated 1 full intersection closure between Lakeshore and Parliament. And it will be during nighttime and weekends, and it will be a very long-term closure. And last but not least, and even one of the most important items, is we are prioritizing the safety of pedestrians and cyclists. And as much as possible, we're trying to keep the access for pedestrians and cyclists through the Michael Goodman Trail. And obviously try to mitigate the adverse effects to the public transit in the area. Next slide. Okay, this is the first closure that we have anticipated and will be the biggest one and the longest one that will take place from Q3 2025 until the end of 2026. It will be mainly for the full construction of Small Street and another section of Queens Quay East. On this arrangement, we will keep 2 lanes open westbound for traffic and 1 lane eastbound. Mike, probably you remember the last version that we were showing a dedicated bus lane instead of 2 traffic lanes westbound. We received direction from the city, and that's part of the coordination between the city, us, and TTC, that they recommended to, instead of have a dedicated bus lane, we will keep 2 traffic lanes westbound, because that will ease the traffic as well in the area. In terms of pedestrian and cyclist impacts, Small Street obviously will be full closure, so no access. Queens Quay north side between Bonnycastle and Small Street will be closed as well, so no access. However, we will keep full access on the south side of Queens Quay East on the Martin Goodman train for cyclists and pedestrians. Next slide. Okay, this is how the cross-section will look like of the road. So you will see the 2 traffics westbound and the other southbound, and the pedestrians on the southern side of the road. And the works will be happening on the north side of Queens Quay East. Carol, are we taking questions now or should we move forward? Because this is the biggest closure in case there's any questions. I don't know if we take it now or later.
I think it might be better, Ulysses, maybe to move through
complete?
all of the slides and
Okay.
then take questions, just in
Okay.
case you get stopped and we don't make
Okay.
it all the way through. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now I will be showing road closures that are smaller closures in terms of timelines. It won't be over a year or as 1 year as the one that I showed before. The biggest one will be this one for 5 months. It will be on the Parliament Street, but we'll be keeping the same configuration I showed in the other slides. So 2 lanes westbound and 1 lane eastbound. The reason of the closure is the construction site that you see in light blue there, which will be corresponding to the construction of Parliament Street. And we will be shifting slightly to the west, the Martin Goodman Trail, to keep the access during that timeline, with no impacts to the west side of Parliament Street. This closure will be taken at the end of 2026. So once we open Queens Quay East and Small Street is when we will be entertaining this closure. Next slide. Okay, so after the previous closure that I showed, we will be proceeding with a 3-month closure of the Parliament Street and the intersection with Lakeshore. With the works that will be happening is the construction of the curve in the intersection between Lakeshore and Parliament Street on the south side of the intersection, plus the shifting of the Martin Goodman Trail to the east side to allow us for the full construction of the curve on the Parliament Street, and the remaining works that will be completed related to Parliament Street as well. In terms of pedestrian and cyclist impacts, there won't be no impacts on the west side. And on the east side, obviously, the impact will be that the people will be redirected to the new Martin Goodman Trail, but they will have full access. And in terms of the Parliament and Lakeshore intersection, we only will be closing the 1 lane due to the construction of the curve in that area on Lakeshore. Next slide. Okay, here I just put together a series of small closures that will be weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks closures, most of them for the construction works on Lakeshore. So it will be to build the new median, the new curve on Lakeshore, and the final closure that you see on the bottom on the right side is the full closure that we'll be doing in the intersection, which will be for line marking works. And that will be only during nighttime, and we're expecting that will be only 1 weekend, 2 weekend stops. And for those smaller closures, our communications team will be providing obviously enough notice when this will be taking place. Through the CLC, also we will be providing updates if there's any changes to keep you up to date on this one. Just to flag that the targeting for the alignment for the opening of the realigned Parliament Street is mid-2027. In fact, in these drawings, you will see how the new Parliament Street will look like once it's fully swapped to the new alignment. And next slide. Okay, that's done. Okay, any questions?
And I'll just leave the slides here for a minute in case somebody wants us to go back to a particular slide, if that's helpful.
Okay, and once again, if you could please have your raise your hand up from the top, raise your hand button, or if you prefer to put your question in the chat.
My goodness.
There you go. A very complete presentation. Thank you very much.
All clear.
Good.
That's great. Well, Michael, we're also happy to share these slides with you so that you can circulate them to the people who are here tonight and those who weren't able to attend.
That's perfect. Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And okay, so there aren't any more questions. So I want to thank the two of you for coming out and giving us this heads up. And I know this is really a long-term project. We're looking over the next 3 to 4 years for the completion of the whole area. And it's exciting to be part of this and just to see all the changes that are happening and that Waterfront Toronto is bringing. And we're very happy that you are so open and transparent about everything that's going on here. And, it's really helpful for us, when we know in advance what's going on rather than having, traffic indicators and traffic barrels and everything else all of a sudden show up on our streets. So thank you very much for that. And Ulises, thank you. That was a great presentation. And if anybody has any questions afterwards, if you could please just send it to us at info@ewca.ca, and we'll make sure that Carol and Ulises get those questions and that we can report back to you on it. So thank you very much once again, and it was great to have you at our meeting tonight.
Thanks a lot, Michael. And we're happy to come back anytime in the future. When we've got an update on the construction timeline for the art installation in Sherbourne Common, we'd be happy to bring that update back to this group. And I know I just remembered there was one question you circulated to us ahead of time that was asking about when the boardwalk would be completed along the water's edge at the foot of Sherbourne Common. Unfortunately, it's not a great answer. We don't have a timeline for that just yet. We're still working on getting the funding to complete that boardwalk extension. The fencing needs to remain against the dock wall there until we can build that extension, because there is some really critical stormwater infrastructure that has been installed against the dock wall that needs to be protected, and we need to protect people from climbing onto that infrastructure. But we needed to build that infrastructure to complete the area-wide stormwater management system. So it's just a timing and sequencing thing. We had to put the infrastructure in place, and then we'll get to work on that boardwalk once we get funding.
Now, people have seen that, and in conversations that I've had, they've used the term wave deck. Are we looking at a similar kind of structure that's going to happen there?
No. It's meant to be, I think, Ulises, you might have a better recollection of this than me, but I think it's a 30-foot wide wooden boardwalk that will be built alongside the length of the Water's Edge Promenade. So it'll just be a flat wooden boardwalk, but it extends the public realm.
Oh, perfect. That'll be great. And then it'll be just boardwalk. Will there be seating, or, if there's anything like that, then, we'd appreciate getting updates on how that's going to look. Any kind of renderings.
Yeah, we'll absolutely come back to you when we've got some more information on that.
Okay, and I'm so excited about the unfinished arch. I can't wait for that. Oh, and I want to take back, as I usually do. I want you to take back to the team to ask them about having cherry blossom trees or apple blossom trees that are planted in Sherbourne Common South, because that would be a great attraction for our area, just to have that so people don't have to keep trudging up to Trinity Bellwoods.
We'll take that back to the team.
Two things I'm going to be known for down here: gelato and the cherry blossom trees.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy or have great success with the rest of your AGM.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.